There are very few really exceptional coaches. And today I'm going to walk you through the three simple, straightforward things that you need to do in order to be the best coach out there. And at the end, I'm going to share with you the framework that I use in each and every one of my coaching calls to ensure that my clients are feeling seen, they're feeling heard, they're feeling understood, they're walking away with clarity. Welcome to the Mastery with Michael podcast, hosted by yours truly, Michael Emily Schuster. I'm here to help you stop spinning your wheels and start operating like a truly mastered CEO. On this podcast, I'm pulling back the curtain on the calibrated business systems, magnetic messaging, and sales psychology I use to help my students build full-time online businesses. I'll be giving you my best advice, internal trainings, and the mindset shifts required to start scaling your expertise and achieve complete mastery over your business. All right, we're doing this. I admit I'm feeling a little nervous, a little bit of nerves going on. My name is Michael. Welcome to the Mastery with Michael podcast. I'm so excited to get into today's topic, which is all about how to be the best coach your clients, your students have ever experienced. Now, we know that the coaching industry is exploding. It's kind of taken on this cliche sort of attitude. Everyone's a coach nowadays. But the truth is, there are very few really exceptional coaches out there. And today I'm going to walk you through the three simple, straightforward things that you need to do in order to be the best coach out there. And at the end, I'm going to share with you the framework, the structure that I use in each and every one of my coaching calls to ensure that my clients are feeling seen, they're feeling heard, they're feeling understood, they're walking away with clarity, they're getting their questions answered, and they are crystal clear on what they need to do within the next week, month, or period to get to that next milestone that they need to hit within their journey inside the container. So, lots of really juicy stuff that I have for you. Grab a notebook, grab a pen, write some things down. There are going to be some great golden nuggets that you're going to want to refer back to. But before we dive into the episode, I have to share with you that this show is sponsored by my own business. And right now, we are approaching an enrollment period for Business and Messaging Mastery, which is my signature 6-month mentorship for coaches, teachers, healers, guides, anyone who is looking to go full time in an online coaching business. This is the container where we build your business from the ground up. Over 6 months, we are installing the systems, the structures, the skill sets, the sales assets that you need in order for your success, your full-time business to be inevitable, where at the end of the 6 months that we spend together, you will have a thriving full-time online business, serving your clients, making a name for yourself in the industry, having an incredible impact, positive impact on your community, on the world, and ultimately living the life that you really desire in the process. So it's a win-win for everybody. If you are interested, click the link in the description to learn more. The application process, the dates for the next enrollment period are all down there, and I'm excited. This program is bigger and better than ever. We just went through an entire refresh and upgrade within all of the curriculum. So it is updated, it is primed and ready for 2026. So get your butts in there if this is the year that you are ready to go full time in your coaching business. All right. Thank you, Michael, for that sponsorship. Let's get into the episode. How to be the best coach. There are three simple, straightforward things that you need to do. Set clear expectations, start with the end in mind, and know your most powerful tools. Your most powerful tools are questions. And these are the tools that are going to allow your clients to get the best results within the container, within the coaching calls that you're holding. So setting clear expectations, starting with the end in mind, and asking powerful questions. It's really simple. It's really straightforward. And like I said at the end, I will walk you through the structure, the framework that I use inside each and every one of my coaching calls, whether it's a group call where we're doing hot seat coaching or it's a one-on-one deep dive. I use this structure every single time and I will map that out for you. Once we go through the three foundational pieces of your arsenal as an exceptional coach. So setting clear expectations. This looks like defining the container, whether it is a just one-off single session, whether it is a 3-month container with weekly calls, 6-month container with bi-weekly calls, monthly calls. It really doesn't matter what kind of container your client comes into. You need to set expectations for how they get to be in the space. It's exactly like having guests come into your house and letting them know, hey, we take our shoes off at the door. Here's where you can put your shoes and your coat in the closet. You're going to be staying in the guest room down the hall. Here's your bathroom. I've set out some clean towels for you. We usually eat dinner around 7 o'clock and we'll do it family style. You don't need to take care of anything while you're here. We're so excited to have you. And this is going to be, the loose agenda that we get into for the weekend, right? Like your guests, your clients, your students get to relax into the space once they know what's expected of them. Nothing's more awkward than walking into someone's home and you're still wearing your shoes. And then 5-10 minutes later, you're looking around realizing I'm the only one with my shoes on. Why didn't anybody say something and tell me that it's an expectation that we're going to take our shoes off when we're in this space, right? And so, things as simple as show up on time to calls, or if you know yourself and you know that you run a couple minutes late, show up 5 minutes early to calls so that you can be prepared. You can be logged into the program, whether you're using Zoom or you're using Google Meet. Setting the expectations for your clients to respect your time and theirs is huge. And this is going to go deeper into letting them know if it's a longer term container, here's what's going to happen during different milestones, different phases within the container, right? Let's use a 3-month container as an example. You might have a pre-recorded video at the beginning of them entering into the coaching space, or you might do this in person on your calls. But when you've taken people through the container enough times to know, hey, you're going to be really excited in the first 2 to 4 weeks of this container, and you're going to be showing up and you're going to be gung ho and it's going to be the next best thing. You'll be pouring all your energy into it. In month 2, it's really typical for there to be a lull in that energy. It's really typical for resistance to come up, for you to kind of hit up against a wall or be really challenged as we're getting into more of the meat of this container and what we're here to do together. So setting the expectations for, hey, you're going to be really excited and it's going to feel really good. And there's going to be a period of time where you have a lot of resistance and it gets harder to actually show up for yourself in this space. And I'm going to be here to support you through that. But just know that this is coming. This really sets your clients up for success, because what I see all the time is that, especially us perfectionists, which I feel like most of us are high achievers, perfectionists in this coaching industry, this space, when we're not at our best or when we haven't shown up to our extremely high standards, or we're not completing the homework on time, or we feel like we're falling behind, it's so scary and so vulnerable to be seen in that mess, in that middle space of your process, that it's really tempting to want to ghost, to not show up for calls, to not ask for support, to not be seen in that really vulnerable space. But when someone sets up the container and sets up the expectation, hey, I know this is going to happen. This is going to happen for you around weeks 4, 6 to 8. And when it does, that is the most important time that you come to me. There is never going to be any shame or judgment on where you're at, if you're behind, if you're lacking energy, like that is okay. And it's really important for you to allow yourself to be supported in that moment. That's what I'm here for, is just going to set the stage for your clients and students to feel really held and actually utilize the support that you're there to provide when they need it most. So, setting clear expectations, boundaries, how to show up, what it's going to look like as your students are navigating the timeline, the container itself, just makes them feel held and cared for and enables them to show up and get the best results possible. So that is number one, setting expectations. And the way that you can start to go about setting these expectations, or figuring out what expectations you need to set in your container, is just sitting down with your pen, with your journal, and taking yourself through every step that a client is going to take from the moment that they complete the payment, receive their welcome email with the next steps from you. That's where it starts. Setting the expectations is in that welcome packet where you let them know, okay, this is step 1, step 2, step 3. And yeah, walking through that process, putting yourself in their shoes to feel like, okay, what would I need to know in order to feel really confident, really comfortable navigating the first chapter of this space and all the subsequent chapters and milestones, right? So start there, just map it out. There's no right or wrong way to do this. Allow yourself to think through the process and then explain that process to your students and clients in the welcome email, in a pre-recorded video that they're getting as soon as they enter the space, in the first call that you guys have together. Just continually be setting the expectations for how they can show up and what it's going to be like for them in this process. All right, let's move on to number 2, which is starting with the end in mind. And this is getting at how you craft a signature offer to begin with, which I'm not going to fully delve into within this episode. So I want to explore starting with the end in mind in terms of, what do you do on that first coaching call where you're showing up, your client is showing up? Like, how do you handle them entering into this space, this container, for the very first time? Now, let's assume that maybe you do have a signature offer, you do have a process, you do have a curriculum, a roadmap that you're taking them through to get to an advertised result that, is part of what you're here to offer. But knowing that every individual's timeline, every individual's path and different goals are going to be really unique to them, you do want to provide some level of customization and personalization to them, especially if they're getting one-on-one support through this container, which I highly recommend, especially in the first couple years of running your coaching business. Having that one-on-one contact with your clients is absolutely essential in getting them really the results that that they're paying you for. So start with the end in mind, meaning that when they hop on the call and you get through the pleasantries, you get through the how are you, what's up, what's going on in your world kind of stuff, you say, we're going to start with the end in mind coming into this container. And I want you to share with me what's most important to you. Where do you want to be ultimately in a perfect world by the time we wrap up this container together? What does that feel like? What does that look like? And, depending on if you're helping your students out with business, it could be a monetary goal. With relationships, it could be a more intangible, like how they feel within themselves, or are they putting themselves out there to find the relationships that they're looking for? If it's related to health and wellness, it could be weight loss, it could be strength. So the goals could be intangible, like sort of feeling based, and tangible. And you want to get clear on both of those, because just getting to a result isn't necessarily the goal, right? Like, you could build a massive business, have a ton of clients, but if you're running yourself into the ground, if you are approaching burnout, if you're feeling like shit in the process, that's not great, right? That's probably not what your clients are looking for. I know that's not what my clients are looking for. So, attaining the tangible goal in a way that meshes with the intangible, like how do you want to feel in the experience of going after that objective or reaching that objective is really, really important. And just ask questions to pull this out. What do they really want? How are they going to show up for themselves? What does success really look like? And once you're clear on what they ultimately want and where they're going, what's really cool about this is you can then reverse engineer the steps, the milestones that they're going to need to take in order to get there. Let's come up with an example for this, and I'll use my own program, my own method as that example. Within business and messaging mastery, I take my clients from either absolute beginners or pretty new in their coaching, healing type of business. Maybe they've worked with a couple clients before, but they're not to that point where they want to be, where they're consistent in their income. They're fully full time in their business. It's not some side hustle that's getting half of their time and energy while they're working other jobs to make ends meet. They want to be full time. They want consistent and predictable income. They want to have a roster of clients that's helping them feel like, okay, they are making the impact that they're here to make. And they are really solid and confident in themselves and what they're here to offer. So that's the result that the majority of my clients come to me wanting. And then the milestones, the steps that I've reverse engineered are part of the curriculum that I've built out that's going to get them there. But where this gets fun, where this gets interesting with the personalization is everyone's going to have a slightly different baseline for where they're at in their energetic experience of building the business. They're going to have slightly different approaches to visibility, right? Some of my clients come to me and they're really comfortable with posting all the time, but their posts aren't converting. They haven't mastered conversion content on Instagram. Or they're coming to me and they're like, I am absolutely terrified of posting, of recording videos, of showing up with my face. And so personalizing the journey looks at getting at those intangible experiences that they're having with each of the milestones they're approaching as we activate their CEO identity with the habits, the energetics, the mindset that they need to succeed. We create their magnetic personal brand through storytelling, through polarizing principles and positioning. We build out their messaging mastery framework by identifying their most profitable niche. And then we go into offer creation and trust funnel building. These are the steps, right? These are the milestones that everyone needs to go through. And I have 8 steps, 8 milestones within my curriculum that's all carefully mapped step by step, very simple and straightforward process to follow. But the individual nature of their approach to going through those steps is where I can support them in that individual experience. And so that's how you start with the end in mind and decide, okay, how can I personalize this for a client who's coming to me and is not comfortable consistently posting on Instagram? We're going to have unique little focuses within the calls and the support work that we do together. She's going to have a different action item to aim for every single week, every single month between calls than someone who is comfortable posting consistently, but needs to learn how to be more strategic in their content, right? So that's number 2, starting with the end in mind. And number 3 is questions. Questions are your most powerful tools as a coach. Questions are so essential. First of all, because no one wants to be told what to do, right? No one wants you to sit here and just preach at them. Here's what you're going to do. A, B, C, D. Any questions? Okay, bye. Good luck. It's like, no, we want the coaching relationship to be exploratory, curious. And what I believe My philosophy is that coaches, guides, we're really here to point our clients and our students back to the answers that they already have within themselves and help them build that self trust to really know at the end of the day, I got this and everything that I need is already here inside. So, powerful questions. I want you to write these down. When your client is sharing something and a thought bubbles up, a reflection, a piece of advice that you know could be really beneficial to them in what they're sharing and what they're experiencing, the question that I want you to frame that piece of advice with is, based on what you're sharing, I have a really pertinent observation to share with you. Can I offer a reflection? Another great question after you shared a reflection, after you've done some speaking, is to close that with, how does that land for you? When you've shared a piece of information with your client, with your student, allow them to reflect back to you. How does that land? What does that bring up for them? Are there more thoughts? Is there resistance coming up to what you're sharing? This is really, really important. If you're just over here preaching at your clients and just bombarding them with information, but they're kind of putting up a wall if they're resistant to the information that you're sharing, either because, they're questioning the validity of it or they're not sure how that applies to them, how they're going to make that work. Like, it's not going to land, right? So check in. How does that land for you? And if the objections come up, you really want to know about them so that you can create a space where you can explore those objections together and find out what's going to be the best way for your client to apply the information that you're sharing and, actually get some results with it rather than just sitting here with their arms crossed and just kind of skeptical, like, yeah, okay, I get what you're saying, but I don't think that's really going to work for me, right? Is what they could be thinking in their heads if you're not checking in, if you're not asking, how does that land for you? Another question that allows your clients, your students to access more of their own agency, start to build more trust with themselves is, what do you think your next best steps are? Again, my philosophy with my students is, by the time they're done with my 6-month business accelerator program, I want my clients to be so empowered, so solid in their own trust, knowing what to do to get more clients, knowing how to grow their business, like the tools, the systems. I'm setting them up with a dashboard to identify their own roadblocks and bottlenecks and fix whatever problems are coming up. I want them to be their own best business coach by the end of the program, to where they don't need me anymore. They've got it and they're fully empowered to move forward and trust themselves to make decisions. So we're building that trust in sessions by me continually reflecting, what do you think needs to happen here? What do you think is the next best step? Because clarity and prioritization are always going to be the most important things in any endeavor, in any niche, whether it's business, relationships, health, whatever. It's like, what's the next best step? What's the next priority? And when you can help your clients identify that for themselves, and maybe they're hitting on the right thing and you can be like, yeah, I agree. I think that's exactly what should happen. Maybe they're hitting on something that you're like, yes, but what about this other thing? Did you think about this? You know, and just bringing, again, that curiosity, that exploration, that sense of, you're here to support them in being empowered to follow their own advice, right? At the end of the day, individuals are really powerful, brilliant, sovereign beings, but we question ourselves. We don't always trust ourselves. Oftentimes, we're just looking for a permission slip to do the thing that we already know we need to do, and yet we need the support, we need the encouragement, we need the accountability to actually freaking do it, which is where you come in, pointing the power back to your clients. And those are the 3 steps: setting clear expectations, starting with the end in mind, asking powerful questions, are going to ensure that your students have an experience with you that is unlike any other coaching experience that they're having with all of the other coaches in the industry who, wanted to hop on the trend, thought it would be fun to be a coach, but really have no real desire in providing the most transformational and impactful experience and results. But you're different because you're here. I know that you're different. I only attract the most heart-centered, ambitious, driven leaders into my world. So welcome if you're new here. And before you go, we do need to outline the structure that you can use in every single coaching call. Like I said, whether it's a one-on-one call, whether it's a group hot seat call, you can apply this structure to anything. And the structure goes like this. Start with wins. When your client hops on, you say, catch me up. What went really well for you this week? What are we celebrating? Getting your students into the energy of celebration is really, really key so that they are actually allowing their brain to recognize the things that went well. Because so often, I see this all the time. I've been guilty of this in the past as well, is we feel like we can't celebrate the small wins. We feel like we have to hold out for the big, massive, like, yes, this is the thing. I finally have a full-time business kind of win, rather than celebrating. Actually, this past week, I showed up for myself exactly how I said I wanted to show up for myself. And I recognized when I was feeling dysregulated, I was feeling anxious, I was feeling overwhelmed, and I actually resourced myself in that moment. I got outside into nature. I went on a run. I took the dogs out. Like I had I had the awareness, I had the wherewithal to give myself what I needed in that moment instead of just pushing through in the past where I would have just said, nope, just push through, just get it done. Like those are also massive wins that we want to help our students recognize and really celebrate for themselves. So start with wins when they hop onto the call. This is the first priority. Step 2 is going to be getting into the meat of the call. So you might format things where your clients are bringing questions to you. They are asking for feedback, for guidance related to what they're moving through in the curriculum. You might be doing all of the coaching and teaching and leading them through the milestones within the call itself without an external curriculum for them to follow along with. So you might be teaching on the call and answering questions. If you're in the healing space, you'll be doing deep inner healing within the call. That's where you'll get into, the meat of the current part of the process that you're working on with your clients. You might do some strategy in the business context. You might do some troubleshooting, finding out where they're at and what they need help with. And then ending the call. Once you've done the session, you've provided the clarity, your clients have had the space that they needed to just bring up everything that was really present for them. That's another thing that we should touch on is training yourself to notice when you feel like your students or clients are kind of holding things back. And maybe there's things that are more present to them, but don't actually align or aren't relevant with the container or what they're moving through. An example of this is I'm a business and marketing mentor, strategist, but so much of business building is integrating that with your life and with your lifestyle, right? So when my clients come to me and, they're kind of going through the motions on the call, we're talking about stuff that they're moving through in the curriculum, social media, self-care and resourcing. But like what's really going on is this nagging thing in the back of their mind that's happening with their partner or, that's happening in their relationships. Like we're also going to just allow space for that to be present and to be navigated through. And if I have anything to offer, I'll offer it. But often just allowing your students to share what's going on for them is really what they need in order to process. Most women, in fact, if you're in the space of working with women, are external processors. So that means they do their best thinking out loud and they tend to ruminate. If no one's giving them the space to explore things, they'll just go over it again and again and again in their minds. When really, if they can just get it out, if they can just think through it enough to articulate what is preoccupying them, they'll get to the conclusion that they need to get to. It'll be clear what steps need to happen, what perspective is going to be the most empowered one to take on the issue at hand. Just ensuring that you are allowing the space for exploration that your clients need to be fully present with what's most alive for them is, again, going to set you apart as an exceptional coach and not someone who's just, locked into this is the roadmap, this is the process, this is what we need to talk about within this call in order to get you to the next step, in order to get so often the process isn't as linear as we think it ought to be. And it feels really good to have, our signature framework, our process, our method mapped out and be like, these are the milestones and this is what we're going to focus on in each call. But human beings are multifaceted. There's no end to the difference from one client to the other. So allowing room for that, allowing exploration for that. I sound like a broken record, but that's because it's a really important key point. And then finally, wrapping up your calls with takeaways. Just allowing your student, your client to reflect at the end of the call. Before we hop off, share with me your biggest takeaways from today. Is there anything that's different from when you hopped on to where you're at now based on what we discussed, based on what happened during this session? And then they can share with you their takeaways, which does two things. Allows you to understand what's really impactful for them, what's helpful, clear, and sticky for them that they're holding on to in their brain. And two, allows them to really lock in the big shifts and takeaways that they experienced from the session. Repeating back to you the things that were most impactful is going to allow that to, just fully land in their brains and in their experience. So walking away from the call, it's not like all this stuff was just kind of buzzing around but getting off the call, it kind of floats away. Once they articulate it and maybe make some notes on it, it's going to be really present for them moving forward and much more helpful when it's present in that way. Finally, depending on the type of container that you're holding, you might want to have regular action items that you are bringing your students back to. So for example, within my container, the coaching calls that I do within Business and Messaging Mastery, we always have 3 action items every single week in between the group coaching calls. And this is kind of echoed on a monthly scale within the one-on-one deep dives. And that first action is always going to be self-care and resourcing. Like, what do you need to do this week to just give your body what it needs? And that could be different week in and week out. So it's not always going to be like, I'm going to do the 3 workouts that I'm aiming to do every single week. Some weeks it could be like, I'm going to go outside. I'm going to go on a hike. I'm going to go on a walk. I'm going to give myself the opportunity to just sit in stillness and reflect. I'm committing to journaling. I'm committing to meditating 5 days of the next 7. Like, whatever it looks like, your clients are going to know what they need most. But just setting that intention for self-care is really, really powerful headed into the week ahead. The second action item is always business related, which corresponds to the curriculum, the homework that they are implementing, the skills they are building as they move through the Business and Messaging Mastery curriculum. And then third is social media. So marketing related, getting in the reps, getting in the practice. What does it look like for you showing up on social media for the next week? And again, going to be highly individualized. Maybe it's, I'm going to create 1 grid post, and that's such an edge that I just want to do that. And if I do that, it's going to be a massive win. For someone else, it could be, I'm going to show up daily, face forward on stories every day this next week. I'm going to make it happen no matter what. So self-care, business, social media are the action items that I always bring my students back to. Now, depending on your niche, depending on the type of work that you do with your clients, yours could be something else, but I highly recommend having these anchors that, just allow your students to create momentum as they're moving through, and you can kind of track their progress based on these self-assigned action items as they move through the container to be like, hey, when we first started working together, like, it was a stretch for you to publish one post on your grid. And now you're publishing posts on the grid 5 days a week. You're doing stories 5 days a week. Like, that's incredible. Look at that progress that you've made and really helping them see and celebrate the little wins on the way to seeing, celebrating, and experiencing the big, massive wins. So that is all I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this was helpful, and I hope this is supportive in your journey and endeavor to be the best coach that you possibly can be. Because what is better? I mean, I was so stoked when I found the coaching industry, when I really discovered, like, this is my calling, this is my passion, this is what I'm here to do, is to help other people become the best versions of themselves possible and create freedom for themselves. What the heck? That's what I get to do. That's what I'm paid to do. How incredible. And so I know that you're after that as well. Not only making a name for yourself in the industry, but really having that lasting impact on the lives of your clients and students. So come back to this episode if you ever need a refresher, but I guarantee that if you set expectations, if you start with the end in mind, if you ask powerful questions, and you structure every single coaching call by acknowledging wins, doing the deep work, and ending with reflections and action items, your clients and students are going to be so well served by you. Best of luck.